The body was 3 days dead. I knew that before I even stepped under the yellow tape. Not because of the files I'd read on the drive over. Not because of the decomp smell the other agents were pressing handkerchiefs against. I knew because I could smell her. Her name was Dana Price, 32, a kindergarten teacher who jogged this trail every Tuesday and Thursday without fail. The crime scene photos had already told me that. But the photos hadn't told me about the pine resin on her shoes, or the lavender soap she'd used that morning, or the faint metallic undertone of fear sweat dried into the collar of her jacket. I knew all of that within 4 seconds of arriving. I tucked that knowing down, deep, behind the wall I'd spent 8 years building. Voss. My partner, Marcus Cole, fell into step beside me, ducking under the tape with the easy grace of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. ME says cause of death is consistent with a large animal attack. Claw marks. Deep lacerations. Blunt force impact consistent with a body being thrown. He paused. They're saying bear. There are no bears in Morrow County, I said. I know. He looked at me sideways. That's why they called us. I crouched at the edge of the scene, pulling on a glove. The marks in the dirt told a story. A precise story. Too precise. Whatever had done this, whatever had stood here, 3 nights ago, under a half-moon, it had not killed in a frenzy. It had killed with intention. 1 strike to incapacitate. 1 to the throat to silence. Marks arranged in a pattern that looked like chaos but wasn't. I'd seen this before. Not in a file. Not in a classroom at Quantico. In the stories the elders told around fires. In languages that had no human translation. The breath went out of me. Quietly. Carefully. So no one would notice. No. It can't be. But it was. I could smell it underneath everything else. Under the blood and the pine and the lavender and the fear. Something animal and ancient and devastatingly familiar. Pack scent. Somewhere in Morrow County, a werewolf had just made a very big mistake. And I was the only person in the world who knew it. Chapter 1. I had a system. It kept me sane. It kept me safe. It kept the wolf behind the wall where she belonged. Rule 1. Never take cases involving animal attacks. Rule 2. Never work within 50 miles of a pack territory. Rule 3. Never, under any circumstances, go back to Greymount. I had broken Rule 1 within 24 hours of Dana Price's body being found. Rules 2 and 3 were looking increasingly fragile. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit had been handed the case by local law enforcement in Morrow County, Virginia. A rural stretch of mountain country 3 hours southwest of D.C. that smelled like cedar and cold rivers and something I refused to name. 3 victims in 8 weeks. 3 women, different ages, different backgrounds, different routines. No obvious connection. Except for the wounds. I stood in front of the case board in the makeshift operations room, a conference room on the 2nd floor of the Morrow County Sheriff's Department that smelled like old coffee and mildew, and I studied the photographs with the same clinical detachment I applied to everything. I was very good at clinical detachment. Marcus handed me a coffee. You've been staring at that for 40 minutes. I think better when I'm still. You don't move even when you're not thinking. He leaned against the wall beside me, studying my face more than the board. That was his gift. Mine was patterns. His was people. What do you see? Deliberateness, I said. I pointed to the first victim. Carolyn Webb, 51, retired nurse. Attack site is 40 yards from the nearest road. She didn't go there voluntarily. Her car was still in the parking lot, keys in the ignition. She was taken from the lot and moved. I moved to the second photo. Rachel Kimura, 28, grad student. Found 2 miles deeper in the same forest. Same wound pattern. But Rachel was a runner. She went into that trail voluntarily, every morning at 6. She wasn't taken. She was waited for. I tapped the third photo. Dana Price. And Dana. Same forest. Different entry point. Whoever this is, they are learning the terrain. Getting more comfortable. Serial killer using an animal attack as a signature, Marcus said. More than a signature. I turned away from the board. My voice stayed even. Professional. This is communication. Every element of these scenes was arranged. The wounds, the body placement, the lack of defensive wounds on Carolyn and Rachel. Both were drugged first, which takes planning. This isn't a person who snapped. This is a person who has a message. For who? That was the question, wasn't it? I don't know yet, I said. It was the first lie I'd told Marcus in 3 years of partnership. Because I did know. I couldn't prove it. Not in any way that would hold up in a bureau briefing or survive a chain of evidence. But that scent at the crime scene hadn't left my memory. It was burned in, The way certain smells are, rain on hot asphalt, your mother's perfume, the particular sweetness of cedar and stone and wild mountain air that meant home even when home was the last place you wanted to be. Pack scent. Greymount pack scent. And underneath it, something darker. Something that had been cut away. The scent of an exile. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Virginia area code. I answered it. Elara. The voice was low. Female. Tight with something that was either anger or fear or both. Vera. I said. Vera Dray. Caelum's sister. My former best friend in the world. The woman who had told me, 3 years ago, run. Run now, before the bond pulls any tighter. Before you can't anymore. I had listened to her. I had hated her for it ever since. You need to come home, she said. This isn't home. You're already in Morrow County, Elara. I can smell you from here. I glanced at Marcus, who was mercifully on the other side of the room. This is a federal investigation, I said quietly. I know what it is. Her voice dropped lower. Urgent. And you need to know what we know. There are things happening in this territory that your files won't tell you. Things your human partner can't see. A pause. Then, barely above a whisper. He's one of ours, Elara. Or, he was. The coffee cup cracked. I looked down at my hand. The ceramic had split clean through. Coffee was spreading across the linoleum. When? I said. Tonight, she said. 10 o'clock. The old mill on Harrow Road. Come alone. The line went dead. Marcus appeared at my shoulder. He looked at the broken cup. He looked at me. You okay? Slipped. I bent to pick up the pieces. I'm fine. But my hands were not entirely steady. And somewhere in my chest, behind the wall, behind all the rules and the clinical detachment and the 8 years of carefully constructed human identity, the wolf opened one eye. Chapter 2. Harrow Road was exactly what it sounded like. A narrow two-lane cut through mountain forest so dense the headlights barely reached the tree line. I drove it with the windows down, not because it was warm. It wasn't. October had arrived with teeth. But because I needed my other senses. Needed to know what I was walking into before I walked into it. The mill appeared out of the dark like a held breath. Stone walls, half-collapsed roof. The skeletal remains of the old water wheel still turning slowly in the creek below. The building was older than the county's incorporation. Older than most things in Morrow County. Packs tended to choose old places for meetings. Old places had memory. They held secrets better. I parked a quarter-mile back and walked in. I heard Vera before I saw her. Her heartbeat, familiar, fast, unhappy. And underneath it, the secondary rhythm that belonged only to shift-capable wolves. The deeper drum. The one that resonated in the chest like a second heart. She was standing just inside the mill doorway, arms crossed, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She looked exactly the same as I remembered, which somehow made it worse. You came, she said. You said it was one of ours. It is. She stepped back, letting me inside. The mill smelled of cold stone and old water and her. Cedar and smoke and something clean. Pack. Silas Vance. I stopped. Silas Vance. The name was a fist around my throat. He was exiled, I said. 4 years ago. Yes. Vera's voice was careful. Measured. The way you speak around something dangerous. You know why. I knew why. The pack didn't speak it plainly. They never did. But I knew the shape of what Silas had done. He had tried to force a bond. Not with the fated pull that couldn't be helped. Not with the vulnerable, helpless gravity of finding your destined mate and standing before them like a man on the edge of a cliff. He had tried to take it. From me. I had been 24. New to the FBI. Still learning how to hold the wolf still inside the human body. Still learning the rules of the life I was building. And Silas had cornered me in the woods behind the pack house and told me that he had decided I was his. That a wolf like me, one with a profiler's mind and a hunter's instincts, belonged beside the pack's strongest beater, not wasted in a human city chasing human problems. I had broken his arm. Caelum had exiled him the next morning. Silas had not gone quietly. He's been watching, Vera said. Not just watching, he's been studying. The killings started 8 weeks ago. We didn't connect them at first. They are outside our territory boundaries. But the pattern. She pressed her fingers to her mouth. Elara, the pattern is moving inward. Each victim is closer to Greymount than the last. His not random. His converging. On what? She looked at me like the answer should be obvious. And it was. On the pack, I said. On Caelum, she said. Something cold moved through me. Not the wolf. Colder than the wolf. Something entirely human and entirely primal, and it took me a moment to name it because I hadn't felt it in 3 years. Fear for someone else. Silas can't take Caelum in a straight fight, I said. My voice came out steady. That was training. The alpha bond. He's not planning a straight fight. Vera pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket. She pressed it into my hand. This was left at the last crime scene. Not somewhere the local police found it. Left where we would find it. In pack language. I unfolded it. 3 lines, written in the old script, the angular, archaic notation that packs used when they needed to say something that had no human word. I read them. Twice. My jaw tightened. He's going to expose the pack, I said. If we move against him, yes. If we don't. Vera shook her head. He kills again. And again. Until the FBI's investigation leads directly to Greymount. Until your kind, the humankind, come to our door with guns and questions. He wants Caelum to break cover, I said. He wants Caelum to shift and defend the territory the old way. On record. On camera. In front of witnesses. And then it's over. For all of us. The silence in the old mill pressed down. You need to tell me everything, I said. Every sighting, every anomaly in territory, every pack member who might have had contact with Silas since the exile. I'm building a profile. I looked at her. And then I need to talk to your brother. Vera's expression shifted. Just slightly. He's already here, she said. My head snapped toward the deeper darkness of the mill. And there he was. Standing 10 feet away, utterly still. As if he had been there the entire time. As if he had been watching me for the entire conversation. Caelum Dray. Alpha of the Greymount pack. Taller than I remembered. Broader. The kind of build that suggested something beyond human genetics. Something older and more deliberate. Like the mountain itself had decided to wear a man's shape and hadn't quite gotten the scale right. Dark hair, darker eyes. A face that was handsome the way old trees are handsome. Not soft, not decorative, but structured around something that endured. I had spent 3 years not thinking about him. I had failed at this approximately every day. He was looking at me like I was something that had both returned and escaped before he could prepare himself. Like he'd had a speech ready and I'd walked in through the wrong door. Elara, he said. 1 word. My name. In his voice. The wolf threw herself at the wall so hard I felt it in my teeth. Caelum, I said. We stared at each other across the dark mill, and 3 years of distance and a bond neither of us had chosen and neither of us could dissolve. Vera looked between us with the expression of someone watching 2 people try to defuse the same bomb from opposite sides. Right, she said quietly. I'll be outside. She left. Neither of us moved. Chapter 3. You look, he started. Don't, I said. He closed his mouth. This is a federal investigation, I said. I'm here in a professional capacity. Whatever else we are to each other. I stopped. Recalibrated. Whatever else there is between us doesn't exist inside this investigation. I need information. You need a problem solved before it destroys your pack. That's the arrangement. A long pause. Okay, he said. Okay. I repeated. Neither of us moved. You broke 3 ribs getting out of a burning building 2 years ago, he said. I blinked. How do you? I keep track of you. His voice was quiet. Not soft, quiet. There is a difference. Soft gives ground. Quiet holds it. I always have. I won't pretend otherwise. The wolf made a sound that had no name in any human language. That's not. I exhaled. That's not something you should have told me. Why not? Because it doesn't help either of us. Maybe I'm not trying to be helpful. He took 1 step forward. Just 1. Maybe I've been reasonable and distant and appropriate for 3 years and I'm tired of it. Caelum. You're in my territory, Elara. For the first time in 3 years. In a case that involves my pack. Another step. Tell me what I'm supposed to do with that. Treat me like an FBI agent. My voice held. Barely. Tell me about Silas Vance. Tell me everything that happened after the exile. And let me do my job. He stopped. Studied me. The way a wolf studies something it has decided to be patient about. Not giving up. Waiting. Silas was exiled for aggression toward a pack member, he said finally, his voice shifting into something more formal, more measured. In the year before the exile, his behavior had been escalating. He'd been challenging other wolves, testing boundaries, pushing at the pack hierarchy in ways that were destabilizing. Was it about rank? I asked. Or was it about me specifically? A muscle worked in his jaw. Both. Silas had ambitions. He wanted to be beater in name and in practice. He saw claiming you as a way to consolidate that position. A profiler's instincts, the ability to read and predict human behavior, a fully functioning life on the outside. He shook his head slightly. He thought of you as an asset. I'm aware of what he thought of me. After the exile, Pack contacts in 3 other territories reported sightings over the following year. Then nothing. He went dark. Caelum moved to a stone shelf along the mill wall. I realized he'd brought something, a worn leather satchel, and opened it. He spread photographs on the shelf. These are from the last 6 months. Territory cameras. Motion sensors we set along the boundary lines. I came forward to look. Shapes in the dark. Blurred, because whatever had triggered the cameras had been moving fast. But the posture, the particular way a wolf carries itself even in human form, slightly forward, weight on the balls of the feet, the watchful stillness between movements, it was unmistakable once you knew what to see. He's been mapping us, I said. For at least 6 months. Possibly longer. Caelum's voice was grim. He knows where the pack house is. He knows our patrol routes. He knows. He stopped. I looked at him. He knows what? Something moved in his expression. He knows you joined the FBI. He knows you're in the BAU. He knows what cases you take. He met my eyes. These killings were designed specifically to land on your desk, Elara. The cold moved through me again. I thought about Dana Price. About Carolyn Webb. About Rachel Kimura. 3 women who had nothing to do with any of this. 3 women who had died because Silas Vance had needed a lure precise enough to pull a specific FBI profiler to a specific county in Virginia. 3 women who had died because of me. I turned away from the photographs. I needed a wall to look at. Just for a moment. Just to be looking at something that wasn't Caelum's face or the photographs or the thing building in my chest that felt enormous and crushing and very much like the beginning of a shift. Breathe. Count backward. Hold the wall steady. Tell me the rest, I said, when I was sure my voice would hold. He told me the rest. By the time he finished, I had the beginnings of a profile in my head that I couldn't ever put into a bureau report. And I had the outlines of a plan that was going to require me to move in 2 worlds at once, human and wolf, with a precision that scared me. There's one more thing, Caelum said. What? The next kill. He looked at the photographs. Vera and I believe he's timing it for the new moon. 6 days from now. And based on the pattern, his voice tightened. The next victim isn't another civilian. Who is it? Me. Chapter 4. Marcus was parked outside the operations room the next morning with 2 coffees and the expression of a man who had decided not to ask any questions but was reserving the right to ask them later. You were gone last night, he said, following a lead. Without telling me. It was preliminary. I took the coffee. Nothing actionable yet. He watched me over the rim of his cup. Marcus Cole was 36, mixed black and Irish, with the kind of face that looked permanently like it was listening to a song only he could hear. He was also, in my carefully guarded professional opinion, the best human reader of behavior I had ever met. Which made him, at certain moments, extremely inconvenient. You look like you slept for 2 hours, he said. I slept for 3. Voss. He turned to face me fully. Whatever is going on, and something is clearly going on, because you broke a ceramic mug with your bare hand yesterday and we're both going to pretend we didn't notice that, you can talk to me. I know. Do you? Because in 3 years I've met your apartment, your coffee preference, your deeply concerning relationship with true crime podcasts, and approximately 0 of your actual life. I looked at him. He was right. He was almost always right about the human things. It's complicated, I said. I have a high tolerance for complicated. I thought about Caelum, standing in the dark mill with the photographs spread on the stone shelf. I thought about Silas Vance in the woods 4 years ago, his hand on my arm and his eyes flat with a certainty that had nothing to do with desire and everything to do with possession. I thought about 3 dead women. The animal attack signature, I said carefully. It's manufactured. Marcus went still. How do you know that? Because real animal attacks have inconsistencies. Wounds that reflect the chaotic mechanics of a predator in frenzy. There's nothing chaotic about these wounds. They are placed with a precision that requires knowledge of anatomy, planning, and control. I set my coffee down. This isn't a predator. This is someone using animal attack aesthetics as a screen. What are they screening? The real method of death. Which I think is the drugging, The tox screens on Caroline Webb showed traces of something the lab flagged as an anomalous compound. Not commercially available. Something synthesized. I pulled out my notepad. I want to send that compound signature to the DEA database and cross-reference it with anyone in Virginia who had the chemistry knowledge to produce it. And you know all this from a late-night lead. I know some of it from a late-night lead. The rest is the pattern. He studied me for a long moment. Then, okay, I'll run the compound. What else? I need everything we have on missing persons from this area in the last 5 years. Specifically adult males with a history of aggression. And I paused. I need to request that we be allowed to extend the search radius. Our unsub isn't from Morrow County. He's been here, mapping it, for at least 6 months, but his origins are somewhere else. I need records from the surrounding counties. That's a lot of records. Yes. Good thing I enjoy paperwork, Marcus said, in a voice that indicated he enjoyed it the way people enjoy dental work. Coffee refill before we start. Please. He went for the coffees. I looked at the board. Silas Vance's face wasn't on it yet. He wasn't in any FBI database. The pack had handled his exile the way packs handled everything. Outside human systems, leaving no record. Which meant I was going to have to build the connection another way. Which meant staying in Morrow County. Which meant staying within 50 miles of Greymount. Which meant staying within breathing distance of Caelum Dray and the bond that pulled at me like a tide every time I thought about his voice saying my name in that dark mill. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, different from Vera's. One line. I know you're here, little wolf. Did you miss me? I turned the phone face down on the table. Silas. He was watching. He was already watching. Chapter 5. The profile came together the way they always do. Not as a single revelation, but as a series of small recognitions, each one narrowing the space where the truth could hide. I worked for 2 days without leaving the operations room except to sleep. Marcus ran the compound signature. It came back as a custom synthesized derivative of a ketamine compound, specifically altered to affect the part of the nervous system responsible for fight response. It wouldn't just sedate. It would eliminate the urge to defend entirely. Leave the victim fully conscious but unable to act. Aware. I added that to the profile. The unsub wants his victims to be conscious. This is not about efficiency. He could simply kill. He wants them to experience the full length of their helplessness. This is punishment behavior. The unsub is processing grievances against parties who are not the victims themselves. The victims are proxies. What I couldn't put in the profile. I believed I was the proximate grievance. A new victim would be taken within 5 days. If Caelum was right, that victim would be him. I called Vera. Tell me Caelum has increased his protection. His restricted pack movement, she said. Pulled everyone inside the territory boundary. But Elara, Caelum won't hide. You know how he is. He won't cower in the pack house while Silas is out there. He needs to. Tell him that, she said. Come tell him that yourself. I arrived at the Greymount pack house at dusk. I had been trying not to think about the last time I'd been here. The summer I was 23, the year before everything with Silas, when the pack house had felt like the center of the world, when the scent of cedar and pine and 30 souls who belonged to each other had felt like breathing after a long time underwater. It looked the same. 2-story stone and timber, set back from the tree line. Warm light in every window. Someone cooking. I could smell it. Venison stew with rosemary and wild garlic. Caelum was on the front porch. He was sharpening a knife with the focused calm of someone who needed something to do with their hands. He looked up when I turned in from the road. His eyes tracked me from the car to the gate to the porch steps with the same thoroughness he'd always had. Not threatening, just entirely present. As if nothing else in his visual field existed while I was in it. It was, objectively speaking, a difficult thing to be on the receiving end of. You came, he said. Vera told me you were being idiotic about your own security. She told you I was being an alpha, he said. You translated it to idiotic. There's overlap. I came up the steps. He moved to make room without being asked, shifting so I could sit on the railing, which had always been my preferred porch position because it meant I could look at everything at once. Old habit. He remembered. I'm not going to hide, he said. I know. I'm not asking you to. I watched the tree line. Habit. Again. Always watching the edges. I'm asking you to let me be part of the plan. You're an FBI agent. And a wolf. The words came out before I could stop them. The first time I'd said that plainly, without qualification or irony, in years. I'm both. I've been pretending I'm only one. But this case doesn't leave me that option anymore. He was very still beside me, What does that mean, practically? He asked. It means I need to set up with the pack. Run the profile from inside the territory. I can map Silas's likely entry points, likely timing, likely target approach. I know how he thinks. I spent 4 years at his shoulder before I understood what he was. I paused. And I know how he hunts. Elara. His voice was low. Are you sure about this? Coming back into? No, I said honestly. I'm not sure about anything. But 3 women are dead and the next target is you, and I'm the most qualified person in the world to stop this. So uncertainty doesn't matter. A pause. You never change, he said. Something in his voice was not a complaint. I change constantly, I said. You still do this. He gestured at me. This, precise, everything accounted for. It'll be fine because I've already thought of everything. It works. Does it? I looked at him then. Full on, which I'd been avoiding. He was looking back at me the same way he always had. Like the answer to every question he'd ever stopped himself from asking out loud. Caelum. I'm not going to push, he said. I promised myself I wouldn't. You're here to do a job. I'll help you do it. He turned back to the knife. The rhythm of the sharpening resumed. But I want you to know that the bond, he stopped. Started again. I want you to know that I felt it every day for 3 years. Every single day. And not once did I regret letting you go. I stared at him. That's a contradiction, I said. I know. Something in his expression broke open, just briefly, and I saw the cost of 3 years of distance behind it. I regret the distance. I don't regret giving you the choice. There's a difference. The knife went still. The evening air was very quiet. Tell me where Silas will come from, I said softly. Tell me everything you know about his movement patterns. And then, I exhaled. Then we'll talk about the rest. Not a promise. Not a refusal. An opening. He heard it. I watched him hear it. And somewhere in my chest, the wolf pressed herself gently, carefully against the inside of the wall. Not throwing herself against it. Just resting there. Waiting. Chapter 6. I spent the next day in a way I hadn't in years. In wolf territory. In pack space. Not shifted. I was holding that back. The way you hold a weapon you're not ready to deploy. But present in a way I hadn't allowed myself to be in a long time. Present in both senses. Human. And underneath, the wolf, awake and watchful and profoundly, achingly glad to be somewhere that smelled like kin. Vera showed me the territory maps. The patrol patterns. The boundary markers. I spread them on a table in the packhouse kitchen alongside my crime scene photographs, and I did what I do best. I found the pattern inside the pattern. He's going to come from the north, I said. Here. I tapped the map. There's a natural drainage channel that runs parallel to your northern boundary for about 2 miles before it cuts under the fence line. It's not on the patrol route. He'll have identified it. How confident are you? Vera asked. 80%. The other 20% is a blind approach from the east, but the terrain is harder and Silas is not a difficult terrain person. He's strategic, not physical. He was our best tracker, Vera said quietly. He was. Before the exile. I looked at her. 4 years out of pack territory changes a wolf. He won't have the same instinctive sense of pack space he had before. His awareness will be sharper in isolation. His had to be his own everything. But his pack tracking instincts will have deteriorated. I paused. He'll overestimate his own invisibility. He'll think he can get closer than he should before anyone notices him. And we'll be waiting. I'll be waiting, I corrected. Vera frowned. Elara. Silas isn't coming for the pack. I kept my voice even. He's coming for Caelum. And he's coming because of me. I'm the law. I'm the reason this entire thing exists. The word sat heavy in the air. It only ends if I'm the one who meets him. Caelum will never agree to that. Then don't tell him until it's already happening. She stared at me. I know, I said. That might be the most reckless thing you've ever said. I've had 3 years of very careful, very controlled living. I gathered the photographs and the maps. I'm apparently due for a relapse. I was halfway to the door when she said my name. I turned. He never stopped looking for you, she said softly. In the bond. Caelum. You know how alphas can project. Not invade, never invade, but leave the door open. He always left it open. In case you wanted to find your way back. She paused. Did you feel it? I thought about the moments over 3 years when I'd woken from sleep with the scent of cedar and stone so vivid I could taste it. When I'd been in the middle of a briefing and felt something move through my chest like a chord struck on a string I didn't know I still had. Yes, I said. Vera nodded. Then you know he's going to be furious when he finds out your plan, she said. He can be furious after Silas is in FBI custody, I said. He'll be alive to be furious. That's the point. I pushed through the door into the evening air. Caelum was standing 10 feet away. He had clearly heard every word. The expression on his face was, a lot of things, in a lot of layers, like a storm system moving over the mountain. Anger on top. Underneath it, something that wasn't anger at all. No, he said. Caelum. No. His voice didn't rise. It went the other direction. Lower, quieter, more absolute. You are not using yourself as bait for a wolf who wanted to take you. You are not doing that. Not in my territory. Not anywhere. He's not going to hurt me, I said. Hurting me defeats his purpose. I'm the prize, remember? He wants. I know what he wants. The quiet broke, just for a second. Just a fracture. Then back together. Elara. I understand your reasoning. I understand that you're the best equipped person for this, strategically. I understand all of it. He stepped toward me, and I'm telling you, as your alpha. You're not my alpha, I said quietly. The words landed. He absorbed them. You're right, he said, after a beat. I'm not. Not in any formal sense. You haven't been part of this pack in 3 years. He held my gaze. But I'm asking you, not as alpha to pack member, not as anything formal. I'm asking you as. He stopped. Started again. I'm asking you as the person who has never stopped, he exhaled. Don't do this alone. Please. The please landed harder than the rest of it. Caelum Dray did not say please. Alphas didn't, as a rule. Not because they were arrogant. Well, some of them were, but because the word had a particular weight in pack language. It was an uncovering. An admission that something mattered enough to ask for rather than take. I stood in the evening air and looked at him and felt the wall in my chest, the one I'd spent 8 years building and 3 years reinforcing, develop a crack. Just a crack. But enough. Okay, I said. Okay. We do it together. I met his eyes. But we do it my way. A pause. Long. Then something shifted in his expression. Not surrender, not victory. Relief. Your way, he said. My way, I confirmed. We stood there in the dusk and neither of us mentioned the fact that we were standing 4 inches apart and I hadn't moved back. Chapter 7. Back in the operations room the next morning, I had a problem I hadn't anticipated. Marcus had found something. He was waiting for me with a printed file and an expression that said I've been sitting on this for an hour trying to figure out how to tell you. Sit down, he said. I don't. Sit down, Voss. I Saturday. He put the file on the table. The compound you wanted cross-referenced. I went broad with it, pulled synthesis records from university chemistry departments, private research contracts, duty-adjacent labs, and I found a match. He opened the file. The compound was synthesized approximately 4 years ago, by a private contractor in Charlottesville, Virginia. He tapped the name on the printout. This person purchased the reagents, built a small-scale synthesis setup, and then disappeared from every database 6 months later. I looked at the name. Silas Vance. But that wasn't what Marcus had wanted to show me. He turned the page. Silas Vance, before he dropped off the grid, was employed for 2 years by a private security and research firm. Unregistered. Difficult to trace. Marcus's voice was careful. I traced it anyway. He turned another page. I looked at the document. The firm has ties to a federal watchdog group, he said. A group that has been compiling evidence, over several years, of what they are calling anomalous biological activity in rural Virginia. He looked at me. They believe there are, and I want to read this directly, non-human biological entities integrated into human civilian populations in the Morrow County and surrounding areas. The room was very quiet. They have files, he said. Medical anomalies. Blood work that doesn't match human baselines. Bone density readings outside human parameters. Reports of supernatural events, which I'd dismiss, except that someone funded this research and someone paid Silas Vance to synthesize that compound and... Marcus. He stopped. How much do they have? I asked. His eyes were very steady on me. He'd known me for 3 years. He was very good at reading people. Elara, he said slowly. How much do they have? Enough to make an approach to Morrow County law enforcement, he said. They've already been in contact with a deputy here. They want access to the crime scenes. He closed the file. I told them the FBI had jurisdiction. Bought us some time. He paused. Voss. Thank you, I said. That's not the part one need you to respond to. I looked at him. 3 years. He had known me 3 years. We had sat in more surveillance vehicles and crime scene briefings and late-night operations rooms than I could count. He had been shot once on a case we worked together, through the shoulder, clean pass-through. He'd been back in the field in 6 weeks, and I had sat by his hospital bed for 2 nights because I couldn't make myself leave. He was my partner. He was my friend. And I was about to tell him the biggest truth of my life. Close the door, I said. He closed it. I looked at the table. Then I looked at him. What I'm going to tell you, I said, doesn't leave this room. It doesn't go in any report. It doesn't go anywhere. I waited. If those are terms you can't work with. They are terms I can work with, he said, without hesitating. I exhaled. Silas Vance didn't join that research group, I said. He was feeding it information. Specific, targeted information. About a specific pack of. I stopped. Said it. Said it plainly. About a specific pack of werewolves. In this county. Who have been living quietly, doing no harm, for generations. Marcus Cole did not move. He did not speak. He looked at me very carefully, the way he always looked at things he was trying to understand before he reacted. And you know this, he said slowly, because I'm one of them, I said. The silence stretched. And stretched. Okay, he said finally. I stared at him. Okay. I mean, you're telling me that you, my partner of 3 years, are he stopped. Processed. A werewolf. Yes. And there's a pack in this county. Yes. And the person killing these women is a rogue member of that pack who is trying to expose them. Yes. I paused. And who may also have ties to a federal watchdog group that would very much like to have documented proof of non-human beings in order to study them, Marcus said flatly. Or worse. Or worse. He rubbed his face with both hands. Then he dropped them. Are you in danger? He asked. I blinked. Of all the questions, Marcus. Elara, are you in danger? Somewhat, I said honestly. Then we deal with the danger first, he said. And I freak out about the rest of it later. He picked up his coffee. What do you need? I stared at him for a moment. The wall in my chest, already cracked, shifted a little more. I need you to be a very convincing FBI agent, I said, while I be a very convincing wolf. I'm always convincing, he said. What do you need the wolf for? To catch one, I said. Chapter 8. 3 days to the new moon. I ran the territory perimeter at dusk, alone, and let myself feel it fully for the first time in years. I didn't shift. I was close, but I held it. The wolf was awake and pressing outward, and the forest floor under my boots felt different from 3 days ago. Felt deliberate, felt known. The way pack territory always knows its own. The way the ground sends information upward through the soles of your feet if you're willing to receive it. Silas was here. Not visible. Not in the perimeter yet. But close enough that I could smell the edge of him. That particular chemical signature of isolation and grievance, and something that had curdled in the year since the exile. Wolf scent gone wrong. Not rogue in the violent sense. Not mindless. But bent. Shaped by a long time alone and a longer time planning. I came back to the pack house and found Caelum in the main room. He was talking to 2 pack members. A pair of older wolves, Bren and Oren, who had been on the Greymount perimeter for decades and whose calm was the kind that came from surviving a lot. He looked up when I came in. Said something brief to Bren and Oren. They nodded and withdrew. Well, he said. His north, like I thought. Within a mile of the territory line. I pulled off my jacket. He'll come tomorrow night. Not the new moon. He'll want the darkness but not the full absence. He needs to see. Tomorrow night is the last sliver. Caelum was quiet. Then, you can smell him. Yes. Even after 4 years. Exile doesn't erase scent. It changes it. But the base signature is still there. I looked at him. I'll know when he crosses the boundary. He nodded slowly. Come sit with me, he said. I hesitated. Not. He stopped. A short, almost frustrated exhale. Just sit with me. There are things I want to say to you that I've been not saying for 3 years and tomorrow might be. He stopped again. Just come sit. I came and Saturday. We sat beside each other on the old wooden bench by the main fireplace, and the pack house settled around us with its sounds. Distant voices, the kitchen, someone playing something quiet on a guitar in an upstairs room. And for a long moment neither of us spoke. I was wrong to let you go the way I did, he said. Caelum. Let me. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the fire. Vera told you to run. I didn't contradict her. I thought. A pause. I thought the bond was unfair to you. You'd spent years building a life. A human life. With a human career and human colleagues and human rules. And I was asking you to. You weren't asking me for anything, I said. You never asked me for anything. That was the problem. He turned his head. Looked at me. Up close. In firelight. His eyes were the color of deep forest water. Dark green around the iris. Dark brown at the center. I had spent 3 years trying to stop remembering the exact color of his eyes. I gave you the choice because I didn't want you to resent me. And all I did was make both of us. He exhaled. You don't run from things, Elara. You are one of the least avoidant people I've ever known. But you ran from this. Because I was scared, I said. The admission dropped between us, clean and stark. I didn't do that often. I didn't admit fear plainly, without context or qualification. The FBI training had reinforced what the PAC years had begun. The instinct to frame fear as assessment, as calculation, not as feeling. He looked at me like I'd just handed him something fragile. Scared of what? He said softly. Of losing myself, I said. The bond is. I searched for the words. You know what the alpha bond feels like from the inside. You've lived it your whole life. But from the outside, from the receiving end, it's like, I paused. It's like standing at the edge of the ocean and knowing that if you step in, you'll never stop. You'll just keep going. And you've spent your whole life building the ability to stop. He was very still. The bond doesn't take who you are, he said. It doesn't dissolve you. I know that, I said. Now. I looked at the fire. I didn't know it 3 years ago. I'd spent 4 years learning how to be a person inside human systems. A functional, effective, contained person. And you are. I stopped. He waited. You are the most UN-contained thing I've ever encountered, I said. Not wild. Not out of control. But vast. Like there's no edge to you. And I didn't know how to be next to something with no edge. Silence. Then his hand moved. Slowly. Deliberately. And rested on the bench beside mine. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of it without touching. Not demanding. Not presuming. Just there. I have edges, he said quietly. They're just not the kind that push people away. A pause. They're the kind that hold them. I looked at his hand beside mine. I thought about 3 years. I thought about tomorrow night. I turned my hand over. His fingers closed around it. We sat by the fire in the pack house with the sounds of pack life around us and the bond moving through me like the tide I'd always been afraid of. And I let it. For the first time in 3 years, I simply let it. It didn't dissolve me. It felt like coming up for air. Chapter 9. I should have slept. I didn't, because at 2 a.m. Marcus called me with news that was specifically the kind that destroys sleep. The watchdog group, he said. I went deeper. Marcus, it's 2 a.m. I'm aware. Listen. I could hear him moving. The sound of papers. The group, they are calling themselves Halcyon Institute. Though that name doesn't appear in any public database, they don't just have files. They have a field agent. Already in Morrow County. A pause. Has been for 3 weeks. I sat up. What? I found a hotel booking in the county records. False name, but the payment trail is real and it leads back to a front company I've now traced to Halcyon. The room is still occupied. He paused. Elara, I think they are planning to document the events of tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. When Caelum and I plan to confront Silas at the territory boundary. When at least one wolf would be shifting. My chest went cold. They want footage, I said. They want proof, he said. They've been building their file for years. Medical anomalies, witness testimonies, satellite imagery of territory patterns. But all of that is circumstantial. One photograph of a shift. One clear, documented, legal moment of a human being physically changing form. It's everything, I said. It's enough to bring federal attention. CDC, DOD, intelligence agencies. I was already on my feet. It destroys the pack. It destroys every pack with any connection to Greymount. That's why Silas was working with them, Marcus said. The killings, they weren't just to draw you here. They were to create a situation where the pack would have to act publicly, where Caelum would have no choice but to use pack methods, in an area the Halcyon agent could monitor. Silas used to say that wolves were wasting themselves, I said. Living in hiding. Playing at being human. He believed. I stopped. He believed that exposure was inevitable. That wolves should control the narrative rather than be defined by it. I pressed my hand to my forehead. He thought coming out would make the pack powerful. He was wrong. It would make us specimens. What do we do? I thought fast. The Halcyon agent couldn't be in position without knowing where to be, which meant they had information about the territory, which meant Silas had already communicated the location of the planned confrontation. We change the location, I said. Silas will know. No. I'll change it, and I won't change it in any way he can intercept. I'll communicate it packway. I was already pulling on boots. Can you find the agent? I can try. Find them, Marcus. Intercept them. I don't care how. Detain them if you have to. I'll think of a charge we can make stick. I was already out the door. And then get to the north boundary yourself. I need a human witness. An official one. Whatever happens tomorrow night, there has to be a record that doesn't include anything supernatural. Elara. You said you could handle complicated. A long pause. I said I had a high tolerance for it, he said. I didn't say I liked it. I know. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah. The sound of him also getting to his feet. Go save your pack. Your pack. I ran through the dark toward the pack house, the wolf wide awake and every sense turned outward, and didn't stop to wonder when I had started thinking of it that way again. Chapter 10. I found Caelum in the dark before I found the light. He was at the north boundary, already there, standing at the tree line in the particular stillness that alphas have, not quite human stillness, not quite animal, something in between that the forest recognized. The trees were very quiet around him. He moved his timeline, he said when I reached him. I know. I stepped up beside him. He's coming tonight. I felt him cross the outer boundary 20 minutes ago. I looked into the dark. The forest was layers of darkness, some dense and some transparent, and my eyes adjusted with the particular speed that had always been one of the gifts I rarely let myself use. I could see 50 yards in. 60. The shapes of trees became distinct. The ground showed its details. And there, at the edge of the tree line's second layer, movement. He's here, I said quietly. Yes. Caelum's voice was very controlled. He'll expect me to come out. Don't. I know. He looked at me sidelong. What's the plan, Agent Voss? Despite everything, I almost smiled. You stay visible enough to be bait but inside the territory line, I said. I go wide right, circle through the drainage channel, come up behind him. He'll hear you. No. I looked at him. He won't. He looked back at me, understanding what I meant. How long has it been? He asked softly. Since I shifted. 3 years, 4 months, 8 days. A while. Your first shift back, he said, shouldn't be under combat conditions. I don't have another option tonight. I turned to face him fully. Don't argue this with me. I'm trained for high-stakes situations. The wolf is trained for high-stakes situations. We'll be fine. That's not what I'm worried about. I looked at him. When you shift, he said, very quietly, the bond opens fully. You know that. There's no containing it during a shift. He held my gaze. Are you ready for that? Was I? No. Yes. Both. I've been ready, I said, for 3 years. I just wasn't willing. I reached up, not thinking, just moving, and pressed my hand briefly against his jaw. One touch. Quick. Deliberate. Watch my back. His hand came up and covered mine for 1 second before I pulled away. Always, he said. I stepped into the dark. And I let the wolf come. Chapter 11. Shifting is not a comfortable thing. I've heard it described as painful. That's not quite right. It's the feeling of a room being rearranged while you're still in it. Furniture moving, walls shifting, the dimensions of everything changing around a self that remains constant. It takes seconds when you know what you're doing. When you've suppressed it for 3 years, it takes a little longer. But the wolf knew. She had always known. She came out of the dark of me the way water comes out of the rock it's been held in. Not forced, not dragged, but released. She shook herself, tested the night air, and knew exactly where Silas Vance was. I moved through the forest like I had been born for it. Because I had. The drainage channel was 30 feet wide and shallow, running fast from the recent rain, and I crossed it without breaking stride, the cold water nothing against the heat of the wolf's metabolism. The scent trail was stronger here. Silas had used this approach before, mapping it, and his past passages left ghost traces in the ground that I read the way I read crime scenes. He was ahead by 40 yards. Moving toward Caelum's position. He had shifted. That surprised me. Silas had always preferred human form. He'd considered it more intelligent, more controlled. The shift was rage speaking, I realized. Or desperation. He'd come for blood and he'd come running. I accelerated. The trees thinned and the territory boundary appeared as a natural break in the tree density, a line of younger growth where the old forest gave way to cleared land at the packhouse edge. Caelum was visible at the boundary, standing in human form, exactly where we'd planned. Silas was 30 feet away from him. In wolf form, he was larger than I remembered. The exile had changed him, leaner, harder, the way isolated wolves went, stripped down to function. His coat was the dark gray of charcoal. His eyes, when they caught the light, they found me. He spun. And for one moment, the three of us were frozen in the night. Caelum at the boundary, Silas between us, me behind him, and the only sounds were the creek running and the wind in the tree line and the furious pulse of 3 wolf hearts. Silas made his choice. He turned from Caelum and lunged for me. Not to hurt. I'd been right about that. He lunged the way you lunge for something you've decided is yours. Aggressive, possessive, an assertion rather than an attack. He was bigger than me in wolf form. He'd always been bigger. I was faster. I dodged left, dropped low, let his weight carry over me, and came up inside his guard. 3 years at the FBI had included martial training. 8 years before that had included pack training. And the wolf had 3 years of suppressed instinct burning through her like a lit fuse. I got my jaws around his throat. Precisely, deliberately, the way an alpha holds. Not to injure, but to assert. To say, I am above you in this hierarchy and we both know it and you will stop. He went still. Heaving, furious, terrified, but still. Because the wolf language is older than words and older than reason and older than grievance, and in the end, the body knows what the mind insists on denying. He had always known I was above him. That was why he'd tried to take me rather than ask. I held him until I felt the fight go out of him. Then I let go. And I shifted back. In human form, on my feet, breathing hard. In the cold October night at the edge of Greymount territory, I looked at Silas Vance. He shifted back too. What came back to human form was something smaller than what had gone into wolf form. Not in body. In something less visible. The thing that had kept him going. The certainty, the obsession, the constructed narrative that had justified 4 years and 3 murders. It was gone. I had taken it with my jaws. The way an alpha takes a rogue's pretension, and left nothing behind to replace it. He was just a man in a forest in the dark. A man who had done terrible things. Silas Vance, said Marcus Cole, stepping out of the tree line to my right with his badge in his hand and his backup behind him. 2 county deputies, both human, both with their eyes slightly too wide at things they had probably half seen and would spend the next decade trying to rationalize. You are under arrest. He read the rights. I stood in the cold and breathed. And Caelum appeared at my shoulder. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He put his hand on the back of my neck, just briefly, warm, steady, anchoring. And I closed my eyes for 1 second and let myself be held. Just that. Just for a second. But it was enough. Chapter 12. The Halcyon Institute's field agent, a woman named Petra Landis who had, it turned out, been conducting surveillance from a hunting blind 300 yards outside the territory boundary, was arrested by Marcus before she could reach a vantage point. He charged her with trespassing, wire fraud, and operating an unregistered intelligence operation, all of which were real charges that would stick without requiring any supernatural element to explain. The Halcyon file on Greymount was flagged, sealed, and buried in a bureaucratic process that Marcus handled with a quiet, methodical thoroughness that made me feel both grateful and guilty. He never asked me to explain more than I had. He never brought up what he'd seen at the boundary, the shapes in the dark, the speed of movement, the things that didn't fit human parameters. He brought me coffee the next morning in the operations room and said, "Case closed, pending trial." "Thank you," I said. "That's going to be a recurring theme between us," he said. "Isn't it?" "Probably." He sat down across from me, looked at the closed case board. "The victims' families will get an answer. A real one." He paused. "Silas is going to go to federal prison." "Yes. For the murders. For the chemical synthesis. For the Halcyon connections." He tapped the file. "He's going to prison for a long time." "Good. Elara." He waited until I looked at him. "You've been in Morrow County for 12 days. "I know." The case is closed. I know. So. He spread his hands. What happens now? I looked at the board. At the photographs of Dana Price and Carolyn Webb and Rachel Kimura. 3 women who had deserved longer, better lives, and who had gotten justice if not enough of it. I thought about rules. Rule 1, never take cases involving animal attacks. Broken. Rule 2, never work within 50 miles of a pack territory. Broken. Rule 3, never, under any circumstances, go back to Greymount. Broken. I'm going to take a few days, I said. Marcus looked at me. A few days, he said, carefully. Before I file my report. Before I go back to DC. I met his eyes. There are things here that need finishing. That I left unfinished 3 years ago. A slow smile moved across Marcus Cole's face. Not smug. Not knowing. Just warm. The way his smiles usually were when they were real. Take your time, he said. I'll cover the paperwork. You hate paperwork. I do, he agreed. You owe me. I'll buy you dinner. Several dinners. He stood, picked up his coffee. Go. Do whatever it is that's making you sit like someone who's about to jump off something and has finally decided it's the right height. I laughed. It surprised both of us. Is that what I look like? I said. That's exactly what you look like. He headed for the door. Go, Voss. I went. Caelum was where I expected to find him. The north boundary. He seemed to default to it in the mornings, the way I defaulted to windows, the instinct toward edges, toward the place where one thing becomes another. He heard me coming long before I arrived. But he didn't turn. I stopped beside him. The morning was clear and cold, the forest lit with the particular gold that only October does. Everything burning at the edges, everything bright with the knowledge that it's almost over. The creek ran below us. Somewhere far back in the trees, a bird was insisting on something. I'm not leaving today, I said. He was very still. Not leaving the county, I clarified. Not leaving the territory. I looked at the trees. There are things I need to do here. Pack business. Things I should have addressed 3 years ago, instead of running, he said. Running, I agreed. I'm not good at a lot of things. I stopped. Started over. I've spent 8 years being exceptional at the things I chose to be exceptional at. And I chose things that didn't require me to be vulnerable. That rewarded containment. I turned to face him. And you are the only thing I have ever encountered that made the containment feel like the wrong choice. He turned then, looking at me the way he'd looked at me across the dark mill, across 3 years, across the fire the night before, like I was both the question and the answer, and he had been patient about it for a very long time and patience was running thin. The bond, I said. Yes. I'm not afraid of it anymore. He exhaled, something vast and held moving out of him with that breath. Good, he said, and his voice was different now, the formal alpha-measured quality gone, and underneath it something that was just him, just Caelum, unguarded and vast and exactly as boundless as I had always known he was. I want to try, I said. Not surrender. Not dissolving into the pack and leaving behind everything I've built. I want both. I know that's difficult. I know the territory complications, and the FBI, and the distance, and the Elara. Logistics of having 1 foot in 2 worlds, and I know. Elara. What? I've been wanting both since the moment I met you, he said. The wolf and the agent and the person who can't sit still in a room without finding every exit and who breaks ceramic cups when she's angry and who spent 3 years being afraid of something she didn't need to be afraid of. He took a step toward me, then another. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of him in the October cold. I don't want half of you. I have never wanted half of you. The bond moved through me like a tide. I let it. I stopped holding the wall against it and just let it move. Let it be. Let it fill all the spaces I'd been holding empty with effort and discipline and 3 years of carefully curated distance. It was not dissolution. It was not the loss of edges. It was the feeling, vivid and cellular and undeniable, of being recognized. Not the pieces of me I'd curated for public consumption. Not the profiler. Not the agent. Not the controlled, precise, exceptional at what she chose to be person. All of it. Every jagged, complicated, wolf-hearted piece of it. Seen. Held. Chosen. Okay, I said, and my voice was not entirely steady. He smiled. Not the restrained almost smile I'd been cataloguing from across rooms for 3 years. The real one. The one that reached his eyes and changed his whole face and was, honestly, Genuinely, one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. Okay, he said. And he kissed me. Not urgently. Not the way I might have expected, with 3 years of distance pressing behind it. Slowly. Deliberately. The way you finally drink water after a very long time without it. Like it's both the answer to a specific thirst and something you intend to take your time with. The bond sealed. Not like a lock closing. Like a window opening. The October morning filled with sound and light and the particular smell of cedar and stone and home. And I stood at the edge of Greymount territory and let myself be, completely and without reservation, exactly where I was. 6 months later, the briefing room at the FBI's BAU headquarters was in the middle of a presentation when I felt it. Not a sound. Not a scent. Just a warmth in the chest. Low, steady, unmistakable. Like a hand pressed flat against the inside of the sternum. His thinking about me. I pressed my lips together to keep the smile from going anywhere it shouldn't. Across the table, Marcus caught my eye. He mouthed, "Work." I mouthed back, "I know." We were 3 weeks into a new case, a different county, a different kind of crime, nothing involving packs or rogue wolves or federal watchdog organizations. And Marcus and I were, as we had always been, the best partnership in the unit. The only difference was that now, occasionally, he would ask me to look at a piece of evidence and phrase it as "tell me what you smell" instead of "tell me what you see." And I did, and the results made him a better investigator and made the cases close faster. We had arrived at a system. It kept us both sane. Rule 1. Be honest with your partner. Rule 2. Do the job with every tool available. Rule 3. Go home. Home, these days, was an ongoing negotiation between a DC apartment and a pack house in Morrow County and a man who called me every night regardless of where I was and whose voice still, after 6 months, made the wolf press forward like a compass needle toward north. I had not resolved the question of logistics. I had not resolved the question of how long I could maintain both lives in parallel, or what the long-term shape of the pack alpha and the FBI agent would look like, or what compromise looked like at a horizon I couldn't yet see. I had decided, provisionally, that not knowing the exact shape of something was survivable. That had taken 8 years, 3 years, and 1 October in the Virginia mountains to learn. The briefing continued. I paid attention to every word. And underneath, quiet and present and constant as the creek below the Greymount boundary, the bond ran warm. When the briefing ended, Marcus and I walked out into the DC afternoon. Cold still, April was late this year, and he handed me a coffee without being asked. "You were somewhere else for about 30 seconds in there," he said. "I was here the whole time. 40% of you was here." He was smiling. The rest was in Morrow County. I wrapped my hands around the coffee. "I'm very good at managing a high cognitive load." "You're very good at everything," he said. "That's both your best quality and extremely annoying." He looked sideways at me. "Is he coming this weekend?" "No. I'm going there." "Good." He said it with the simple, direct warmth that characterized everything about him. No performance, no subtext, just a good person being glad for someone else. "You should go there more." I thought about the pack house. The fire. The creek sound at night. The wolf awake and content in me, not pressed against any wall, just moving freely in the way she was always supposed to be able to move. I thought about Caelum's hand at the back of my neck. The window that had opened. "I will," I said. We walked toward the parking structure. The city moved around us. And inside me, both of what I was, human and wolf, agent and pack, contained and boundless, moved together, neither one diminished by the other. Not in conflict. Not anymore. In balance. Finn.